The Honourable Navdeep Bains is the Member of Parliament for Mississauga-Malton and was appointed Minister of Innovation, Science and Economic Development on November 4, 2015. He has extensive experience having represented Mississauga-Malton from 2004 to 2011. He served as Privy Councillor and Parliamentary Secretary to Prime Minister Paul Martin, and then as Critic for Public Works and Government Services, the Treasury Board, International Trade, Natural Resources, and Small Business and Tourism. Minister Bains was an adjunct lecturer at the Master of Public Service program at the University of Waterloo and a distinguished visiting professor at the Ted Rogers School of Management at Ryerson University. His private sector experience includes several years at the Ford Motor Company of Canada. In addition to ties within the academic and business communities, he has held director positions with social and cultural organizations within the nonprofit sector. He is the recipient of a number of awards recognizing his work in promoting diversity in communities. Please join me in welcoming as our closing speaker at the 2018 Canadian Telecom Summit, the Honourable Navdeep Singh Bains.
I'm okay, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much, Michael, for that very kind introduction. I was cringing because I've spoken to my team on several occasions to please reduce that to maybe one paragraph. So I apologize to you for, again, having to listen to such a very long and lengthy introduction. But thank you, Michael, for your leadership and for those kind words. I would like to begin by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Wende, Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee people. And it really is a pleasure to join you again, and I was told that I would be the last official speaker, so expectations are a bit high. But I'm delighted to be here again at the 2018 Canadian Telecom Summit. Merci, Michael. And je suis très heureux de vous rencontrer de nouveau à l'occasion du Sommet 2018. So many of you, and I recognize a few faces when I walked in, recall that last year at this summit, I shared with you my vision for Canadians and telecommunications, and it was focused on three things. It was focused on quality, coverage, and price. So what progress have we made over the last 12 months? So I'm going to talk about the first issue around quality. And I want to tackle this because we want our telecom services to be fast enough so every Canadian can participate fully in the digital economy. Parlons d'abord de qualité. Nous voulons que nos services de télécommunications soient assez rapides pour que tous les Canadiens puissent participer pleinement à l'économie numérique. Improved quality will allow us to innovate, whether it may be in augmented reality, cloud computing, or precision health. And we've done some pretty remarkable things to improve quality. Most recently, and some of you have heard about this announcement, we joined the provincial governments of Ontario and Quebec to launch Encore, an important public-private partnership in the 5G market. Encore is a 5G testbed that will advance the development of 5G networking solutions and next-generation technologies and applications. It's a great way for our small and medium-sized enterprises to really develop products and test products. I think this group knows better than anyone the impact 5G will have on innovation and the overall economy for Canadians. So while on the topic of 5G, I can tell you that today we are launching 2 consultations that will support 5G deployment. We are proposing to release an additional 1 gigahertz of millimeter wave spectrum and will also launch a consultative process that will advance us towards the 3,500 megahertz auction. And as you know, the 35 megahertz spectrum is going to be one of the essential parts and bands for the 5G services. The consultation reflects our commitment to get this spectrum into the marketplace in a timely manner, and that also supports competition, a key priority for our government. We know that this industry wants access to this spectrum. I've heard this loud and clear. And let me assure you, our proposals align with international trends in the band and represent an important step towards ensuring the 3,500 will be available to meet consumer demand for 5G. And more broadly, today my department published our spectrum release roadmap for the next 5 years. And it's really a big part of our commitment to making the right spectrum available at the right time to meet current and future demand. We plan to hold 3 spectrum auctions over the next 3 years to support 5G. And I'm referring to the 600 megahertz auction in 2019, a band that has shown potential for 5G wireless and also well suited for rural and remote communities. And this is an exciting part because this is a challenge for our government, and you just heard recently some of the challenges of getting to some of those really remote and rural communities. The 3,500 megahertz auction will take place in 2020, which will also be key to delivering 5G services. And finally, the millimeter wave auction in 2021, which is prime real estate for 5G networks. And I think it's important to note that in the meantime, we have redesigned the development license program to help innovators get temporary access to spectrum as well. So we're looking at every tool in our toolbox to make sure you have the conditions and the ability to deploy 5G in a timely manner. And it's working. People have snapped up these licenses at a much higher rate, allowing them to test and validate solutions that advance Canada's 5G leadership. The next area I want to talk about, so quality is important, but the next key area is coverage. We are focused on this because in the service area, it's absolutely essential that we have this. Over the past 18 months, we have rolled out our Connect to Innovate program with great success. More than 900 rural and remote communities across Canada will soon be fully equipped to participate in the digital economy thanks to this program. That's 900, and our original goal was 450. And I want to congratulate the service providers in the room for their incredible interest in this program, their leadership, and that's why we've been able to succeed. That is why we've been able to go out and connect with so many more communities because of these partnerships. So I want to thank, again, industry. It was a very competitive process. There were many people that participated. It was highly oversubscribed. And it really is a great example of what we can do together for Canadians when we partner up. Additionally, the CRTC is pursuing its new objective of getting broadband to homes and businesses with a speed of 50 megabits per second as well. And complementing these initiatives is a Budget 2018 commitment. So in the last budget, we put forward initiatives to support projects like the low Earth orbit satellites and the next generation for rural broadband. LEOs are technologies that are still developing, but offer incredible potential. And this is a $100 million investment, which will allow industry to develop such technologies. Ultimately, this could lead to improved broadband coverage and capacity for Canadians. So we're looking at the Connect to Innovate program. We're looking at low Earth orbit satellites as well, technology and fiber, every possible solution we can deal with in terms of providing proper coverage. The last point I want to make, and the third and essential point, is around price. And this is really an essential part of the puzzle, as it is in many industries. In the case of telecom, there obviously are the high-quality services available to Canadians across Canada, but are they affordable? And we want to make sure that Canadians can access good quality, good coverage at affordable prices. So to bring down costs, we all know that CRTC has banned cell phone unlocking fees. This is something I heard from many, many consumers about. And Canadians, to give you some context, paid nearly $38 million in unlocking fees in 2016. But I'm also pleased to say that as part of our 600 megahertz auction, we're setting aside 43% of the spectrum for regional competitors. And that's a huge push for more competition and lower prices that such competition brings. And we believe as a government that this is an important way to deal with affordability, and we're very proud of this set aside. Finally, with respects to price, I'm pleased to announce Connecting Families. It's a new initiative that will help hundreds of thousands of low-income Canadians get online so they can also participate in the digital economy. And we'll even provide them with our computer if they need it through our Computers for Schools program. These are an additional 50,000 more computers we'll provide. And I want to in particular recognize industry because, again, they really took this challenge. They stepped up in a big way. I want to recognize Bell, Cogeco, Rogers, SaskTel, Shaw, TELUS, and Videotron for stepping up in a big way. Offering low-cost home internet service plans for hundreds of thousands of Canadians is so important. We truly appreciate your efforts and your collaborative spirit. Ladies and gentlemen, we all agree that all Canadians need access to high-quality, broad-reaching, and affordable internet services. And as with any competitive market, more can be done. More must be done. And I won't rest until we achieve a reality where kids in northern and remote communities have the same connectivity privileges, the same ability to access the internet at an affordable price point, just as people do here in Mississauga, just like my two girls do, and I see them all the time at home and on the weekend. It is imperative that we remember that many Canadians are not fully engaged in the digital economy. And whether it be an issue of quality, coverage, or price, I encourage your industry to keep swinging for the fences, because together we will make this country a global center for innovation, one that focuses on driving economic growth, creating good quality jobs, and making sure that people enjoy a good quality of life. Thank you very much. Merci beaucoup.
Well, Minister, you were just talking about the industry continuing to swing for the fences. I have to say it's a long time coming. It was 10 years ago, 2008, that Michael and I first, in our opening remarks to the 2008 Canadian Telecom Summit, talked about a broadband service for low-income families, and very pleased to see that announced. Can you tell us some more about the Connecting Families initiative?
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for your leadership, Mark. It really has been an effort that has taken many years. And industry, as I acknowledge, stepped up in a real big way. This is so critical. We want to make sure that people, no matter where they live, have access to high-speed internet. And it's really about families, and it's really about kids. You know, my sister-in-law, she's a teacher, and many of my, actually, family members are teachers, and they talk about how much of the homework that they give to their students is connected to the internet. 70% of the homework assignments are connected to the internet. So imagine young people now having access to the internet that didn't have that opportunity or privilege before. And in my opinion, there's two digital divides that we deal with. One is, of course, the urban-rural split and the challenges we see with high-speed internet access in rural communities. But there's a socioeconomic challenge as well, particularly in the large urban centers. And that's why Connecting Canadians is such a great initiative. It's a $10 plan, 100 gigs, and it's a monthly plan. There's no extra connecting fees. There's no installation fees. very affordable, and we're using the Canada Child Benefit as a means to determine which families will be eligible. Because 1.2 million Canadian families live in poverty, and this particular initiative, which again, industry stepped up in a big way, will help hundreds of thousands of Canadian families, and particularly those kids. And you know, the success is really important for these young kids, especially in a digital economy. Kids that have access to the internet have a better chance of graduation than kids that don't, by 10%. So there's clear and compelling data that demonstrates that this is a true equalizer, that the internet no longer is a luxury, it's essential, and this is really focusing on those individuals, those families, those kids that were falling through the cracks.
It's terrific. I know one of the FCC commissioners, Jessica Rosenworcel, speaks of the homework gap, and so it strikes me as a great program to help go across that gap. As you said, there's a second gap, which is the rural-urban, and we've had Connecting Canadians. The CRTC has its new fund. What else are you looking for in the way of extending broadband, increasing speeds, expanding the coverage?
Yeah, so in many cases, when I meet communities, it's really a matter of life and death. You know, I travel, and I'm very fortunate to travel extensively and go to many rural and remote communities, and I meet with Indigenous kids with idle hands that don't know what to do, that don't have any hope, that don't have any aspirations, and are trying to figure out how they can connect in this new economy. And I went to a library in an Indigenous community, and they were downloading something. They started the download, we went out, we had lunch, we came back, and they're still downloading. It's just absolutely brutal. And so that was one of the reasons why we introduced the Connect to Innovate program, is how can we provide high-speed internet connectivity in rural and remote communities. And so this was the fiber backbone infrastructure investment. And what was really impressive was we put in $500 million, and industry and different levels of government and other partners stepped up, and we got over $1.2 billion of investments in this program. And that's why we were able to essentially support 900 communities. So we want to continue to see how we can further expand this program. But again, we're going to need industry to step up in a big way. I'm also looking forward to the rollout of the CRTC fund, the $750 million program that they have. I think there's a lot of potential there, looking at what we did under the Connect Innovate program and see if they can replicate that success and get good leverage out. And as I mentioned in my remarks, the low Earth orbit satellites. So it's a two-pronged approach. One is, of course, we're looking at broadband and we're looking at fiber, but the other is what other technologies exist that can deal with better high speed and issues around latency, right, and delay. And so these LEOs, these low Earth orbit satellites, present an enormous potential. And Telsat, I saw them. Well, I saw their. Saw some PR there, and I walked in with them. But a great company, a lot of potential, and they're playing a leadership role in this area as well. So we think that's an area that we can invest strategically in, and that's why we made that announcement. Because when I speak to my caucus colleagues, this is a serious issue as we're becoming more and more digital. I mean, just to give you an idea of the amount of data that exists and how digital we are, in the last 2 years alone, 90% of the data that's been generated globally has occurred in the last 2 years. So you can imagine all this data in a new data-driven economy, in a digital economy, how essential it is. And so for us, the investments in rural and remote communities, the Connect to Innovate program, the low Earth orbit satellites, looking at CRTC, working with the provinces and territories. I am very fortunate to have a table with my provincial counterparts and territorial counterparts. And the number one issue we talk about is broadband connectivity. And so we're looking at how we can better align programs, better align policies, but none of this would be possible if we didn't have industry support. And a lot of the success we've had in the past has been attributed to the industry stepping up, and we want to continue that model going forward.
Thank you. Well, you've been here now 2 years in a row, and we now have a 3-item scorecard to talk about, and hope you'll be back again next year. Thank you very much for sharing perspectives on how we can improve connecting Canadians through connecting families and Connect to Innovate. Thank you.